Welcome back to Career Pathways and Conquering the Pi Part 5. In this video, we're going to install some other utilities for penetration testers. We're going to install a faster browser, and we're going to mount some extra storage to be used on the Raspberry Pi. I've actually called these action items because they're just kind of a collection of things that I'm doing. And as we're doing subsequent videos, this may be what I entitle this page, just because I'm just trying to keep things together and keep the project moving and get better and better at really conquering the Pi. So we're going to install a program called Recon NG. It's been around for quite a while. It's a great penetration testing tool for looking at web stuff. We're going to install another one called Metagoofle. And in order to really get the use out of Metagoofle, which is a way that we can go out and get information from a website and have it actually brought down to us and create documents based upon what it finds, we need to be able to read PDF files. And Kali does not read PDF out of the box, but there is a great program called Events that will, and we will install that. Another program I want to install is called HTOP. HTOP is a process monitor. It will show us things like how many cores our processor has, how it's actually utilizing those cores, how much memory it's using, and will allow us to kill processes. So I like it. It's very cool. It's kind of like a system monitor in Windows. We're going to install Midori. Midori is a faster browser. One of the things I don't like about the Raspberry Pi and Kali is Firefox, in that Firefox is just slow on the Raspberry Pi because it's so graphically intensive. Well, there's another little browser out there called Midori. I'm going to show you how to install that, and we're going to install another program called Proxy Chains. When you install Kali Linux on something other than a Raspberry Pi, and you use Tor, so you install Tor like we've done in part 4, one of the little applets that oftentimes will get installed is called Proxy Chains. Proxy Chains allows you to leverage Tor or not, depending on what you type. Well, I'll show you how to install Proxy Chains, so we don't need to actually modify Midori in any way in order to use Tor browsing, like we did with Firefox. And by the way, if you don't want to modify Firefox, you can also use Proxy Chains for Firefox. Then we're going to go ahead and configure the Pi to use an eFAT USB drive and mount point. Now, once we install the software, because Linux does not see eFAT by default, once we install that software, then it will actually auto mount a USB thumb drive. However, what if we want to put, for example, a 2.5-inch SATA drive that's maybe stuck in a USB 3 enclosure? Well, it won't mount that. So I'll show you how to actually see what might be hooked to your Raspberry Pi, and I'll show you how to mount that. And the reason, of course, we want to do that is not only, even though the Raspberry Pi will see the USB device, we might want to change where the mount point is and how that's done. And both of those apply whether you're using a USB device or something like an external hard drive. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So let's go ahead and get started configuring and conquering the Pi. So here we are back on our Raspberry Pi 3, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do an apt-get install recon-ng. None of these applications take a long time to install, and so we'll go ahead and install them real quickly. Now, recon-ng is kind of a program kind of along the lines of Metasploit, in that there are a lot of modules it's going to load. I'm not going to show you how to actually use recon-ng in this particular video. I will be doing another video on recon-ng. I just want to make sure we have it installed, so when we do get ready to use it, it's ready to go. And if you choose, of course, not to install this, it's fine. You can always install it later. But here's recon-ng. And we can see that it indeed is installed, and there it is. So you can see there's a bunch of modules and payloads and so forth that you can do. There's some exploitation modules, discovery modules, those kinds of things. I'm going to go ahead and type in exit and get out of this. And I'm going to install my next application, which is called Metagoofle. So we're going to do an apt-get install Metagoofle. And it also does not take very long to install. Now what Metagoofle will do is it will actually go and look at a website and actually document its findings. And when it does that, it's going to give you some options, and I'll show you those in a minute, but one of the options is just to output data into PDF. And part of the problem is, and again here's Metagoofle, try that again. Here's Metagoofle, and as you can see as this comes up, one of the options is to save your documents in PDF format. So this gives you all the command line parameters you would use, output directories, what websites you're going to go look at. And one of your options here is to export this stuff in doc or PDF. Well, doc I have already taken care of because in an earlier video we installed LibreOffice, but there's no PDF reader. So we're going to want to make sure we install a PDF reader so we can actually get Metagoofle to work. And again, Metagoofle will be a separate video. I'm probably going to put together, a part 6 or 7 where I actually run some of these apps just so you can see them running. However, right now I just want to get them installed. Again, we're conquering the Pi, and I want to make sure we have all the utilities needed to actually do a good pen test. So there's Metagoofle. The next one I want to do is called EVINCE, and this is the reader for PDF files. And the answer is yes, we want to go ahead and install that. And again, these just don't take that long to install. When we finish this one, we're going to install another applet called HTOP. And what HTOP is a resource monitor, kind of like Process Monitor is for Windows, except this is for Linux. And it will show us our 4-core processor, how much processing power each core is needing to accomplish whatever task. It'll show how much memory, what processes are running. It will allow us to kill processes and do a variety of things, in fact. And that's just a very cool app. And I'm going to be honest, I typically don't run this in Gwake. I typically go to a regular terminal window and run it, simply because it wants to take the whole screen. And a lot of times when I'm running HTOP, I'm using it so I can actually look at the processes as I might be loading or running another application. So that's okay. I just want to make sure you know that it's a very, very cool app, and how I run that particular app. I'm actually using it more and more all the time to monitor how my Raspberry Pi is actually doing. And you can see that's just about done. Whenever you get to processing triggers, you know that your installation is just about complete. In case you're not familiar with Linux, that's one of the last things that has to happen is processing triggers. And there it is. And the last app I want to install is called HTOP. HTOP. Now your installations may be a little bit different than mine. Sometimes your installations will ask you if it's okay to install it. And the answer is typically, of course, if you just issue the install command, is yes. But depending on the state of your copy of Linux, it may or may not ask you that all the time. So here's HTOP. I'm going to go ahead and just clear this window, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into a terminal window real quickly and run it there, because I think it's more effective to do it that way, and I'll show you why. So we can see it running now in a window, and if I ran this in Gwake, of course, it would be taking up my whole screen, and I probably don't want to do that. But you can see it actually shows I have 4 cores. It shows exactly what those cores are doing. It shows how much memory I'm using. I got 1 gigabyte of memory, and of course I'm not using anywhere near that. And then it shows all the processes, and I can actually move down through the processes and remove them or whatever I need to do. Very cool program. I want to encourage you to spend a little bit of time with it. And that, my friends, is HTOP. As I indicated earlier in the video, there are some inherent issues with the browser that comes in Kali Linux for the Raspberry Pi, in that it simply is very large and very graphically intense. There are some other browsers out there that we can load, and in fact I want to show you one of those right now. It's called Midori, and let's go ahead and install that. I'll do an apt-get install, Midori. And as this installs, and it really doesn't take very long, let's go ahead and tell it yes. And you can see it's installing. This is a fairly lightweight browser. And it takes a minute or so, well, not really a minute, but it takes a little bit of time to load it for the first time. But once it's loaded after the first time, it actually is fairly quickly. It executes very quickly. And so I want to use this, but I also want to use it in conjunction with another program called Proxy Chains. Now, we can go ahead and configure Midori to use Tor. But what I really want to do, because since we have a copy of Iceweasel/Firefox already configured to use Tor by default, I want to have the option of using it or not using it with Midori, because there's times you might want to use either or both. So we're going to install another program called Proxy Chains and configure that. And when you install a copy of Kali, say on VMware or on your laptop or your desktop, without using the Raspberry Pi, when you use a standard GNOME interface, when you install Tor, Proxy Chains automatically installs. However, with the Raspberry Pi rendition of Kali Linux, they did not choose to install Proxy Chains, so we will install Proxy Chains. And I will show you how we can leverage that and still use the Tor network, but then again we have a choice, very easy choice, a very quick choice of using that or not. So this is almost set up. And again, as I indicated earlier in this video, when it says processing triggers, you know you're almost done. And so we are almost done with this install. There it is. So if I type in Midori, M-I-D-O-R-I, and I'm going to go ahead and just wait for this to load. And again, the first time it loads, it does take a minute to load. There it is. And you can see it is in fact up and running. And I'm going to go ahead and type in the command or the website, what's my IP. So let me, there it goes, whatsmyip.org. And you'll see my IP address comes up in the screen, or on the screen. And you can see it's 97.121.31.179. Now, in order to get this on the Tor network, remember I already have Tor running, and if you are coming to this video late, you might want to watch video number 4 or part 4 of Conquering the Pi, because that's where I actually installed Tor. I'm going to go ahead and install another application called Proxy Chains. So this is called Proxy, P-R-O-X-Y-C-H-A-I-N-S. And this one really doesn't take long to install. It's pretty quick. Yes, I want to install it. And you can see it's just about done already. Pretty quick. Now there's a config file that comes with Proxy Chains that we need to modify. And that's going to be found in the etc directory. So /etc Proxy Chains. So I'm going to go ahead and do a cd ... and a cd etc. And I'm going to do a nano Proxy Chains. And it's a config file, so proxychains.conf. And what we need to do in this file is we need to go down, and you see where it says dynamic chain. We want to remove the remark from there. So we do want to use dynamic chain. If we use static chain, we would have to know exactly which machines or which servers on the Tor network this is going to go to. Well, we don't. In fact, a lot of times I'll put a # there. I'm actually just going to delete the whole line because I really don't want it there. Then I'm going to go down all the way to the bottom, and there's two other modifications to this file that we need to make. One is I'm going to remove where it says defaults set to Tor because I want that to happen. And then the very last line needs to say sockets. Try that again. S-O-C-K-E-T. I'm sorry, socket. I said socket, I meant socks. S-O-C-K-S. 5. And then it needs to be, and I'm going to go ahead and press the my numlock 127.0.0.1 colon 90, and I don't think it's going to let me enter a 5 because of what's going on here, 50. So it's going to say socks 5 instead of socks 4. That's all we need to do. We'll go ahead and save this file. And remember my IP address before? Well, now here's how we enable proxy chains. We simply type in the command proxy chains, and then we can type in Midori, M-I-D-O-R-I. Now, if we want, we can go ahead and put www.whatsmyip.org, or we can leave that out and just put in Midori, and it will go out and actually find the website that I'm looking for. So, and it would have found this anyway by default. And what's cool, by the way, is look behind the screen, behind the browser, you can actually see the Tor network actually loading and working. It's very cool. And I mistyped that, so let me go just over to here. I think it's actually right here. There we go. And remember, because we are on the Tor network, things do run a little slower. So let me go ahead and get this IP address or this website, whatsmyip.org. And let's jump in there real quick and see if I can go to it. And I should, in fact, get a whole new IP address. There it is, 88.150.148.26. So we can see we are on the Tor network. And if I go back and I close this browser, and you'll see it actually went ahead and got out of Tor for me automatically. And now if I just go ahead and type in Midori, we'll see that, again, I'll have an IP address, but it's going to be back to my old IP address. How's that? So on and off of the Tor network pretty easily, right? Okay, so that's how easy this is to install. Install Midori, install the proxy chains program, modify the proxy chains, and that should do it for your browser. For this last step in the Conquering the Pi Part 5, I want to show you how to mount both an external USB thumb drive and an actual hard drive, and show you how to get them hopefully to boot or mount to the same place no matter which one you load. So I've already went ahead and inserted a USB thumb drive of 256 gig into my Raspberry Pi, and you'll notice this is not highlighted, it's dark. It's not like these, and that's because it can't be accessed yet. In fact, here it tells you, hey, I don't have any idea what the file system is. Now, this file system I'm actually using exFAT, the extended FAT file system. And the reason I'm doing that is because they can both be read by Linux with the proper software installed and by Windows. Now, NTFS can as well. But the problem with NTFS, if when it goes to the Linux world, is making it read-write. There's some more things you have to do, and I find that the extended FAT is just easier to deal with, and so that's what we're going to use. You can choose the file type that you like the best, and that's fine. So with this, I need to install a couple of applications in order to get this file system into my system. So I'm going to do an apt get install on a piece of software called Fuse, F-U-S-E, and exfat dash F-U-S-E as well. Now, you'll notice I'm actually putting two pieces of software on the same line. With Linux, I can do that. So I'm going to install Fuse and exfat Fuse. Hit enter, and it should install both of those particular items. And when it does, what you should see, and I don't know if I'm going to have to reboot it or not, I don't think so, you should see that that device should actually start working as soon as these files are installed. In fact, there's actually no configuration at all for these, which makes it kind of nice. Okay, there we go. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do a clear, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to my desktop. And what you hopefully will see is this is going to come online. And again, I may have to reboot the system. Let's see if we can get it to come up. There it is. How about that, right? Okay, so it's working. Okay, everything looks good. Now, what I want to do is find out where this is actually mounted. And actually I know, but let me show you how I know. If I go back to my command prompt and I type in the command ls blk, you're going to see that right here I have where this is actually loaded. It's loaded under, and really it's loaded under dev/dev/sda1. And the mount point for this is actually media root ext. Where did it get this ext? Well, it got this ext because that's actually what I named my device. I named my device when I formatted the device, I named it ext. To me, that means external drive. So ext stands for external. Now, I really don't want it to mount there. I want it to mount under media ext. So what I need to do is actually create a mount point and then point this device to the mount point that I choose. When I do that, I'm going to reboot the system to test this out, and I'm then going to plug in an actual 2.5-inch hard drive and see if I can get it to automatically mount to the same spot. So first of all, I'm going to do an ls and just see where I'm currently located, and you can see I'm located in the user root. So I'm going to do a cd ... which puts me back to system root. I'm going to go ahead and type in cd media, and I'll do an ls, and now you see I have that called root. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to actually make a directory. I'm going to make a directory nkdir, and I'm going to call this one ext. Okay, so now I have two directories. One's called ext, one's called root, and under root, again, there's my drive called ext, and I can actually open that drive and do an ls, and let's do nano. Actually, I can even do a command called touch, but touch tstdoc. How's that? And I just, oops, touch. How about ch? tst.doc. Touch is a command where I can actually create a document on the fly, just like that. Okay, so that works. Now, what I want to do is I want to mount this at a different location. Now, to do that, I'm going to go into the program that actually will allow me to auto mount anything that I tell the system to auto mount. And to get to that, we're going to do a cd ... cd ... cd ... I'm going back the easy way, and you can see here I am. I'm going to go to cd etc, and there is a file on here called fstab. So nano fstab. And here's the file. Now, you want to be really careful what you put in here. Because I did this once and actually crashed the system, it wouldn't boot after I was done. That's not a good thing. So I'm going to put in /dev SAB1 or SBA1, and let me verify that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and just you know what I can do? I can go ahead and hit F2. Let me hit F2 and go to another terminal and type in that LSBLK, and I want to make sure that it says SDA1 right up there, SDA1. So let me go back to my previous terminal window and let me type in SDA1. And then, now that's the device I'm going to mount, and then do a /, and I'm going to type in, I'm sorry, space and a /, and I'm going to type in media /ext. So what this should do is remount that dev SD1 over to media ext, and that really is all there should be to this. So what I now should be able to do is save this file, and I'm going to reboot the system, and I'm going to go ahead and go offline while I do that because it does take a minute to reboot. So I will be back with you shortly. Okay, after a quick boot, I did leave my USB device in the Pi, and of course I can open it. Should be fully accessible. There's the file I created. Now, how can I verify where it's loading? Well, I can do that two ways. I can go ahead and go back and type in my LSBLK, and you'll see now it is actually being mounted at that mount point of media ext. And if I go back to cd ... cd media and cd ext, now you can see that there's my file. And in fact, if I just go ahead and back up one more directory and do an ls, you see root is still there. Type in cd root, and there's nothing in root. So what I've done now is I've moved that from media root ext to just media ext. It's shorter, and it makes more sense to me because I don't want to necessarily identify with the root user. I want to identify with media and ext. So that's now my external drive. Why would I want a 250 gigabyte drive hooked to a Raspberry Pi? Well, Raspberry Pi, my current OS is actually 64 gig, so this allows me to, you know, save a lot more data than that. So for example, if I had a penetration testing dictionary for a dictionary attack on, say, wireless and or a SAM database, and say I had 3 or 4 1 terabyte files, which is a lot of data, folks. I can put that on my external device now. Or maybe I had one that was 5 gig or 10 gig or 30 gig or 100 gig, or in this case I can go up to about 200 some odd gig. I can bring files in that big, and of course that would take the Raspberry Pi a long time to crack, but I got time on my side. I've got 4 Raspberry Pis. I can dedicate a Raspberry Pi just to that. So that's why you, in a pen test, you might want to have a large piece of media, not just a little SD card that comes with a Raspberry Pi, attached to the device. Also, if I'm dumping a lot of files from a system, or I'm generating a lot of code, maybe I want to use CUP and write have it automatically start putting down my own dictionary file based upon information that I get about a particular customer or client. I can use CUP to generate that, and that takes a lot of drive space. Well, this now gives me not just my 64 gig SD card, of which I have about 40 gig free, but it's also going to give me another 200 in a case. In just a few minutes, I'm going to put a 320 gig drive on here. And the goal is to get this to mount under media.ext as well. So I've got to go now find my my hard drive that I want to mount. I've got to hook up another device. I'm going to go ahead and unplug my SD card. I'm actually going to shut the Pi off. I'm going to reboot the system. When it comes back up, I'm going to have a whole nother device. And in fact, you really shouldn't even see it. I don't believe it's even going to show up right here because it's going to see this as a hard drive, not a thumb drive. So I don't think it's going to show up here. Now it might, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the video down and put it on pause here for a few minutes. And I'm going to shut the Pi down anyway, and I'm going to hook up an external hard drive. And let's see what kind of luck we have about getting this to mount in exactly the same location. So I'll be right back. Okay, so as I promised, I went and found my 300 gigabyte, I think it's a 320 gigabyte actually, hard drive that's hooked through a USB 3 port. I hooked it to my Raspberry Pi, and you'll notice I don't get the symbol for a USB thumb drive. I get this. And check this out. It says new volume. You know why it says new volume? Because that's what this volume is actually called. I didn't name it Pi or EXT. I just called it new volume. And here it is. And I want you to notice something. If I were to go over to my command prompt in Quake, and I were to type in LSBLK, look where it's mounted. It's still mounted in Media EXT, and I can prove that by typing in cd ... cd space media, cd space ext, and there's my files. A different set of files because it's a different drive. So I can now plug in this external hard drive into my Raspberry Pi, and it's going to automatically mount under media.ext, or I can plug in a EFAT drive, and by the way, I believe both of these are formatted EFAT, or the EXFAT, the extended FAT. I can plug in either a hard drive or a thumb drive, and they will both mount to the same spot. So I don't have to worry about where my mount point is now. And I want to show you again where that file is because it's really important. If I just do a cd ... and I go back into etc, and again I load the file nano space, and it's called fstab, fstab. And you'll see right here in line, I think that's 4, it says dev sda1, and mount that to media, or we should say /media/ext. So that's the command that does that. So whenever I have a storage device hooked up to this, it's automatically going to mount to there. And I probably would never have more than 2, or more than 2 at a time, or more than 1 at a time. So this allows me, and just one more thing real quickly. So this allows me to do this very easily. I'm going to go ahead and exit this file. I want to run that command again because I want to show you that this indeed is a drive that's larger. You can see this is 298 gig rather than 238 gig. So this is a different device, and it's showing up differently. Different device, different size, but because it's plugged into USB, it's going to mount it to right where I've told it to mount it. So that's going to conclude part 5 of this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching this as much as I've enjoyed making it, and I will see you all in the next video.